So, um, in today's video, I'll be telling you about my meeting, my encounter with the Serbian owner of the pension in Volendam, who turned out to be a nice guy. So um, from the section entitled Titanic. From the section of Piglet. So, if that's something for you, if the book made you interested in the content, then stay tuned and off we go with the story. So, um, first, obviously, I lived with. It's not even first. So before I moved to the Serbian pension. First, I lived with Hans, and Hans told me that I would find the Serbian pension behind the Suarma, but I couldn't find it. So um, a man in the streets helped me with it, and I was lucky. I was lucky because I loved living there because during winter there were no people and pension was used. It was filled with people for the summer, so it was really great. Um, the day I met Kemo was the day he told me that there was no kitchen, and I was still very happy, and he told me to go and look up at the room first, and I was still happy. I was happy that I found the room, and we didn't have actually too many meetings, um, but once we had our meetings, then he would, call his friend sitting next to him, who actually had a wife who is a translator. He would call him Shakira, and they would stare at me and they would laugh. And I believe they laughed because of the way I danced to the songs by Shakira. um, and we had a party, and Kemo actually didn't participate in that party, but his friend participated in that party. In every job, I had a man who supposedly liked me. Then Radam was probably just acting out the fact that he liked me, but it's always a nice thing to act out. And during that meeting, I think they were channeling me, and I think pretty much that they have extrasensory perception developed, and I think that they were just checking the references in my Akashic records. So yeah. So during the party, we were eating, and there were some friends invited over, and I had this not nice thought that they ate like pigs, which they didn't do. But if you spend years sitting on the sofa and eating, like this, having your plate in your hands, then you don't have to basically bend over the food, right? I think they were just checking the references to anything I would write about pigs, and to Piglet itself, as the title of my book indicates, Piglet, right? Um, and I was in my head and having issues over cooking for so many people, and I thought, oh my god, what if I had to cook for all of them later on, to somehow uh, to acknowledge that I was invited. We talked about the word kurva, and they laughed a lot because they use that word in Serbian too, but in their language, it indicates only the lady with a low morale. Whereas in my country, you can use it as shit sugar, right? Doesn't mean it's not as soft as sugar, but it can be used as when you drop something, when you I don't know, forget something. when you're in a hurry and you got annoyed. So you use this word in those contexts, and you use this word to indicate a woman of a low morale, a whore, right? And as we were still sitting, Adam also was teaching me bad words like masz tu pizdu, and I was just sitting repeating, and I was having fun, which was a little bit, when I think of it, we really spent some time practicing this phrase. And his friends were actually drawing a Mickey Mouse. So the girl who was sitting with us, who was Radam's friend, drew a Mickey Mouse, and I just didn't know then that that would be my second book. Wow. So yeah. And then, I was thinking about their war. In 1991, there was a civil war in Serbia and in former Yugoslavia. And it wasn't an easy war because, not only after the war, sex trafficking started to develop in that country, but also during the war, there were just such descriptions like, someone was asked to bite somebody else's penis out, like entirely. Yeah. And, they asked me what was my town famous for, and the truth is, I didn't know much about my town. I'm learning about nuns and about churches in my town, so I have to tell you, I still don't know much about my town. But the thing that came to my mind then was the thing that I learned from my best friend, and she learned it from her sister's boyfriend. Um, so I recall the information about Jewish people that the very first transportation of Jewish people to death camp took place from my hometown, from Tarnów. This was actually what came to mind when I was asked what was Tarnów famous for. So I told them, yeah. And then we talked about the hacked phone, and they told me if I, needed to have some revenge, then they would just, go and do the justice, and I had to just give them the name and give them the address, and the hacker wouldn't speak anymore. So, yeah. I was just, for a moment, I think I was wondering if they really meant it, if that was really for real. But I didn't decide to be revengeful. And, and I looked at one of the guys, because as I was thinking about the war in former Yugoslavia, and I had people from Serbia sitting by the table, and just one girl that was from Bosnia, and I thought, oh, so there must be some tension. So on that thought, she just left the table and just went away a little bit further, and I started to eat olives from the man who was sitting next to Jovana. And as I was eating those olives and I was staring at him, I started to think that he looked like a gypsy man. And then I looked at another man and I thought, oh my God, and you too look like a gypsy man. And then I started to look at, Jovana and Adam, and I thought, oh, they are pretty much white, and those folks over here are so brown. And I started to compare them, and I started to, as if describe their facial expressions and in my thoughts, and describing their proportions, and I was, doing that, looking at faces. And they were joking all the time that the man who sat next to Jovana would marry her. Then, when Jovana walked me to my room, Then I told her that I was sorry for eating those olives and spoiling her evening, and I told her that it was good that she wasn't actually going to marry him, um, because if the man acts like he did, then probably there was no point. And when doing so, I was opening the door, and it's just looking at it with the perspective of time, and having all this full picture of my memories and my thoughts at the table at that time. Then I think they were just channeling. They were channeling, and maybe the fact that I was opening the keys and I was admitting to her, well, I'm sorry for the olives, and I don't know why, from which place did it, you know, come from, because I wasn't into that man who was sitting with us by the table. So um, I think it was about honesty. So the key would be honesty, and admitting to things. Um, and what else did I want to tell you? One time, for sure, I not once, but I forgot to. Um, I think I have forgotten to take the key with me. I just went for a smoke. And I was about to meet Rafael that day, so I had a meeting scheduled, so I was a little bit stressed. But then when I went for a smoke and I smoked, I was even more stressed. Because it turned out, all the doors were just closing very easily. Like you just leave the door and it goes and is, closed on its own. So, um, yeah, I smoked my cigarette. I had my 3 minutes of pleasure, and then I had no place to sleep at. But I knew Kemo had yet another house very, very close, and I knew Hans was very close at whom from whom I was renting too. So I went everywhere. So I went to Kemo's house, but that house, was inhabited by just one man who spoke no English and had no phone number to anybody. Um, so I went back to Hans, and Hans was calling in the pension, but nobody picked up the phone. So so I just got back to the Serbian man, and he let me in, and we drink a beer or two together, and we watch some video clips with Serbian music show depicting, ladies in underwear or ladies in swimsuit. Like, okay. And then, and then it turned out, I had to run away because he, first of all, he when talking to me, like talking on the phone, like trying to ask questions with the translator. But it seemed sometimes that he was texting someone, that is, if he was it seemed as if he had a girlfriend. But anyway, he was trying to um, um, I don't know how to call it. He was trying to have sex with me. So when he finally told me um, to go in the streets, then I just ran up the stairs and I closed the door in his room, and all the door in the entire house, like in the pension, work that way, that you can just push the door and it closes on its own, and you can open it only from the inside. So this was pretty much um, how I didn't sleep in the streets. And oh, Kemo later asked me so if I liked sex and why didn't I have sex, and I just couldn't give him an answer, and I just didn't know myself. Like I knew my body didn't need it, and I didn't need it, and that was pretty much it. But I couldn't explain it or find the reason behind it, other than this is what I feel like right now, that I don't want to and I don't need to. And with Kemo, I also had one, a deja vu, because he asked me what was the most important thing in life, and I didn't know what to say. So he said time. Time was the most important thing in life. And the very same thing I was told by David McCowan. Excuse me. David. David used to go with me to English Exchange Club, and and we used to meet from time to time. And he asked me the very same question, and I didn't give him the answer. And he was like, "Time. Time is the most important thing in life." And um, when Kemo asked me that was very interesting because, I wrote this review on the war, Long Live the War is Dead by Ed Poliani. And it was a review of the translation from English into Polish. So it was a review of the book about the war in former Yugoslavia. So it was interesting that when writing this review, I was collecting utterances of people and I was looking at how those utterances were translated that were related to time specifically. And then I was asked by a Serbian man what was the most important thing in life, and he told me that time was the most important thing, the most valuable thing in life. That's interesting. Okay. And then, yet again, the winter time was over, and Kemo had to rent the rooms to either, he had two offers coming by at him. So he could rent it out to Ukrainian people, and he could rent it out to Serbian people. He chose Serbian people, and I was still pushing for the room and pushing for the room. So he told me, okay, so just come for the conversation and you ask somebody else because I'm no longer in charge here. And the entire space, like the room in the pension and the house, was supposed to be rented out. So when I came for the conversation, I talked to a guy who was very nice, a very nice person, and he was the person in charge supposedly. But he told me, okay, you can live in the attic, and you can do that, but you have to ask the team leader or the manager. So I was talking with someone who was above the manager, but it turned out that I had to ask the manager, and if he agreed, then there was no problem. So he was a very nice person to me, and he even wanted to have that second cup of coffee with me, and he even told me, so you really prefer to go to this, Hans, other than staying here and talking to me? So I was like, yeah, he was right, because Hans is, this man who was just walking naked at 5 a.m. in the morning, having 3 flatmates in the house. That's probably not the habit he had, but that's probably just something he said he had. Because I don't believe you can have such a habit when you live with girls from various corners of the world, because people can react to it in various ways. Okay. And yeah, so the first meeting went fine, and he even wanted to have the second cup of coffee with me. But when I met the team leader, he was like very harsh with me. Not only he refused me very directly, very, not in a nice way, but he even started to yell at me like, "Get out of here! Like, what are you waiting for?" And that man, had brown skin and green eyes, and trust me, he looked pretty much gypsy. Yeah, I think he was gypsy. And in the entire house, I had to stay there for 1 or 2 nights, and there was a woman, a woman came to the, working space where there were only guys, and she looked pretty much gypsy. and she came there with the dog. So I was really, really surprised to see a woman in such a place because it was stuffed with guys, filled in with guys. So um, that was unusual. And I linked it with the fact that, my family used to go to Serbia at least twice. Um, so, and the conversation that we had, a very short conversation, and I would say an aggressive conversation, would also tell me that, okay, maybe there is something more to it than just just a team leader, just a manager. That was a random person. Maybe that person wasn't random. Yeah. Okay. So that is it for today. And Piglet is on sale. Today it's $3, and the price is growing every day. €1, $1 every day, and so is the price of Amelia. So Amelia today is 14, and tomorrow is gonna be $15. So you can still grab the opportunity and have it in a better price. So if you like this video, please like, share, and subscribe. And thanks for watching.